Obviously, I don't have a real WWE Championship belt, so I had to resort to using a real belt for the bit. Anyway, the point is that Aaron Rodgers owns the Chicago Bears. I was a bear. Yeah, cut the camera. What's good with y'all? It's your boy Poppy. We're back again with another video. And this is going to be my review on the Green Bay Packers' 24-14 win over their vaunted rivals, the Chicago Bears. And Aaron Rodgers proving that once again, not bringing out the suit belt, that he owns that franchise. Now, before I get into it, I just love Bears Week. There's just, even though you obviously hate them because they're your biggest rivals and everything, there's just such a respect that I think most fans have for each other, that deep down there's a respect for the other franchise, given that we're the two oldest franchises in the league, the two most historic franchises probably in American sports. The Packers were invented in 1919, a year before the NFL even came about. Chicago came a year later. They were one of the original teams. They were called the Decatur Staleys back in those days. They weren't even known as the Chicago Bears. So there's just so much history there, and that rivalry has obviously grown through all these years, and the amount of legendary players that have come through. I think the Bears have the most Hall of Famers, and the Green Bay Packers have the second most. I think they have 27, we got 22 or something. So legendary players that have played all throughout these years in these rivalry games. And even when the Packers might not be good at a point, like we were in the 70s or 80s, or the Bears might not be so good like they are now, the matchup always means something because of all that history that came before it. And being a history buff myself, I can always appreciate that. I'll just say that there's a reason why the NFC Championship trophy is named after their legendary head coach, George Halas, and the Super Bowl trophy is named after our legendary head coach, Vince Lombardi. That's all you need to know. So offensively, we started slow, which has become a theme this season, but even still, we picked it up eventually. Aaron Rodgers had an efficient 17-23, 195 yards, 2 passing TDs, and a rushing TD we'll get into later. Ran the ball well. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon combined for over 150 yards on the ground. Devontae Adams had a big day, 4 catches, 89 yards, including a big catch, which set up the game-ending touchdown later on. So offensively, we were pretty good. And despite that, we had more injuries. Josh Myers is going to be out for a few games with a knee injury. So yet another injury. My goodness. The injury bug got to be an Olivia Munn fan, because that bug has just been biting Aaron Rodgers' team all season long. It's ridiculous. But even despite all that, still picking up victories. It must be said that Mason Crosby had a quiet day, only had to take 4 kicks, made all of them, only had 1 field goal to attempt, and then made all 3 of his extra points. So uneventful day for him, but that's good. It was quiet. He made all his kicks, and we thank God for that. Defensively, we were pretty solid. We broke our streak of consecutive games with 2 or more takeaways. Adrian Amos almost had an interception, which would have been, I think, his 3rd interception in 4 games against his old team. He used to play for the Bears, but he just had 1 foot out of bounds. Even though we only got 1 interception from Darnell Savage late in the second quarter, I believe, defense did get 4 sacks, including 2 huge ones at the end of the game. Negatives on the defensive side, the Chicago Bears had 2 touchdown drives, which were their only 2 red zone trips of the game. So that horrendous red zone streak, which I talked about last week, still continuing. I lied last week. I think I said that it ended. We didn't end it, apparently. So in between the 20s, our defense is fantastic. As soon as you cross that red zone threshold, we're like Swiss cheese, pun intended. So defense has got to sort that out. We can't just be an automatic 6 points anytime a team gets in the red zone. Got to be forcing those 7s into 3s, because that could change the tides of the game. So we got to improve on that. But other than that, defense was relatively solid against a rookie quarterback. Did what we need to do. Held Chicago to only 2 touchdown drives. Shut them out for 2 whole quarters. Can't really complain. Speaking of Chicago's offense, I did mention before that Chicago has a lot of Hall of Fame players. Not too many of them would be quarterbacks. If there's one Achilles heel in this entire historic franchise, it's the lack of a quarterback. You got to go all the way back to Sid Luckman back in the freaking 40s, when old Adolf Hitler was still cutting up, to go and find an all-pro quarterback for Chicago. No, I'm not counting Jim McMahon. I mean, they've just had some duds over the years, even since I've been a fan. We're talking Rex Grossman, Kyle Lorton, Mitch Trubisky, Jay Cutler. God, I miss him. Yeah, just some awful QBs, but this is the first time we got to see Justin Fields take the field against the green and gold. And being the first time I saw him, I was relatively impressed. You know, he's very different. I remember one of my friends told me he's very different than some of the other quarterbacks. He has certain qualities, like he can move around in the pocket, but he's not that fast, not that elusive. He has a good arm, but it's not that fantastic of an arm. And watching him play, I can kind of see where that's coming from. He's got a lot of poise for someone that young, but that poise, it comes with a negative side. Like, what I notice is he stays in the pocket too long, holds onto the ball too long. A lot of the same problems Ben Roethlisberger had back in the day. But yet he stays in the pocket for too long, and he also goes out of the pocket too quick. It's a weird thing, but, you know, it's just a young quarterback. He'll learn that with experience. Like I said, those 2 sacks at the end of the game by Kenny Clark, which essentially ended the game. I mean, it's just rookie mistakes. He's holding on to the ball too long. You know, get out of the pocket, throw the ball away, find somebody open, you know, and a 2nd and 10 became a 4th and 26, which was essentially game over in that point, which it was. But, you know, he did show some poise. You know, those 2 touchdown drives, he did play very well and made some good plays on that drive. Established a rapport with Daryl Mooney, so obviously he'll grow and get better as the game goes on. He obviously wasn't named to start at the beginning of the season. It took Andy Dalton being hurt for him to be shoved into the lineup, so, you know, he just gets more games on his belt, more game experience. You know, he'll obviously get better as time goes on. And maybe, just maybe, he'll break that vaunted Chicago QB course. Obviously, as a Packers fan, crossing my fingers that doesn't happen, but we'll see. And, of course, with the game 17-14, Aaron Rodgers essentially put the game to bed with a rushing touchdown at the end, gave him the classic belt, and then yelled out, "I own you. All my life, I freaking owned you," which is just great. And no Chicago fan can really lie. And it's really emblematic of the recent history of the Packers and Bears rivalry. So it's not really just Aaron Rodgers that has owned the Bears over these last few years. It's essentially the Packers have owned them as a team since Brett Favre got here all the way back in 1992. See, because before that, the Bears are up 57-6, as in the Bears have won 80 times to us winning just 57 times and 6 ties. After Brett Favre was traded, right, that record is completely flipped, and now the Packers are ahead 102 wins to 95 losses and 6 ties. In about 30 years, we've just beat them so handily to completely flip, I'm going to mess the math up, a 23 game deficit to a 7+ game advantage, which is absolutely spectacular. Brett Favre was 22-10 against the Bears all time. Aaron Rodgers now 22-5. So that's 44 wins to 15 losses over these last 30 years, and we completely flipped the rivalry on its head. I've been enjoying this dominance. I haven't seen us lose to the Bears very often. And yeah, man, Aaron Rodgers had every right to be yelling and screaming at those fans who were actually flipping it. They were flipping him off, which is why he reacted. So he's well within his rights to celebrate. It essentially iced the game. Packers go to 5-1, 2 games ahead in the NFC North now. And yeah, we're in a pretty good spot. We're in pretty good shape. There were a lot of injuries, more injuries he picked up. Darnell Savage had to leave the game. Like I said, Josh Myers had to leave the game. He's going to be out for a few games with a knee injury. But it's this next man up mentality that's really working for us. And, you know, the Packers had 15 guys on IR the last time we won the Super Bowl. So maybe us getting injured a lot early in the season could be a good omen for us, but who knows? But we got guys really stepping up. Josh Nijman, Lucas Patrick, John Runyon, you know, guys that are stepping up, filling in. Devondre Campbell has stepped up ever since Zadarius Smith has been out. Like, whole bunch of guys that I did not think I'd be talking about this season are stepping up, making plays, and helping us win football games. And with all the other teams in the NFC that are 5-1, Arizona been balling out, LA been balling out, Tampa Bay, the defending champs, balling out. Dallas has been spectacular. The fact that we are right up there with them with all these injuries, as soon as we start getting healthy and players start coming back late in December, January, and we can start playing our best football, and Aaron Rodgers is unstoppable at Lambeau in January and December. So I feel pretty good later on in the season. If we keep on picking up wins week in, week out, despite our injuries, we get this next man up mentality, you know, we should really be in good shape. Got Washington this week at Lambeau. Going to be wearing our retro 50s jerseys. Kind of iffy on our old jerseys, but hey, if we win in them, I can't complain. So that's going to be the video for today. Catch y'all on the flip. Peace, and go Pack Go.